We're going to talk about being idle. And Paul makes a strong understanding and acknowledgement that we need to plug into our lives. In the book of 2 Thessalonians in chapter 3, Paul is warning the people about being idle. Now, in verse 6, he writes, "In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, we command you, brothers and sisters, to keep away from every believer who is idle and disruptive and does not live according to the teachings you received from us." See, there are many people that go to church, okay? And Paul is talking about the ones who are believers, the ones that claim to live a life in the Lord. But they're idle. And they're idle all around the world. They may go to church. They may attend certain activities that's part of the church, but they're being idle in their Christianity. They're being idle when they leave the church building. They're being idle in their faith to their families, to their loved ones, to those that are out in the world, in their workplaces, in their communities. And being idle is not what God desires from his followers. It is an active lifestyle. When Jesus came to earth, he wasn't idle. Even as a young boy, Jesus was in the synagogues. He was involved. And the people were astonished at what he knew. So we can't be idle in our Christianity. See, that's not a life in the Lord if we're idle. Think about a car that's running. And what good is it if it's idle? You want to use that vehicle. Just running alone is not enough. The car was built to be driven. Your life was meant to move, to serve Christ. So we need to think through how we live our lives. In verse 7, "For you yourselves know how you ought to follow our example. We were not idle when we were with you, nor do we eat any food without paying for it. On the contrary, we worked day and night, laboring and toiling so that we wouldn't be a burden to any of you." See, Paul is laying out some thoughts that he was not idle. They were out doing the Lord's work. when you live for the Lord, it's not you go to church or worship at a church building and meet other believers and then claim that you're living a Christian life. And you do nothing else. That's not a Christian. A Christian is active day in and day out, living in the light, being the example of Jesus Christ. There's a real warning, a message about being idle. See, when we are idle as Christians, we see the world turns darker and darker. This is why we see more sin and changes from righteousness to unrighteousness. The evilness that we see on a continual basis, and people that are living in confusion, without hope, without understanding the real plan of salvation. In verse 10, Paul mentions, "For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. If the one who is unwilling to work shall not eat." There are people that are working in this world, and they don't have much to eat. They're doing the best that they can. And there are many people in this world that are getting plenty to eat, and they're not working. We need to work. We need to do God's will. We need to see the glory in God through how we live our lives, giving him the honor and the praise, because he is the one that created us and gave us a life with a purpose and a plan for heaven. The time is right now to anchor your soul on a journey that leads